Welcome to the I Create Daily podcast. I'm Leora Alderson.
And I'm Devani Alderson. We're your co-hosts on this journey of creativity and productivity.
I Create Daily is for artists in every genre of creating, from musicians to writers, crafters to inventors, bloggers to entrepreneurs. I Create Daily is a movement for creators serious about your art.
If you're into creating anything, this podcast is definitely for you. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Hello and welcome to another episode on the I Create Daily podcast, a movement for creators serious about their work. I'm Devani.
And I'm Leora. Our guest today is a cellist, singer, songwriter, cheerleader, and mentor for other creatives. But it hasn't always been that way. In 2013, Emily Ann Peterson received a diagnosis that forever altered her 2-decade livelihood as a cellist and cello teacher. Refusing to lose her life's love of musical expression, Emily Ann got curious. She began to bravely question and explore new artistic frontiers and broke through her creative glass ceiling through songwriting, which has opened the door to limitless possibilities for Emily. Emily Ann's best-selling book is titled Bare Naked Bravery, How to Be Creatively Courageous. And through it, she helps creators discover the true nature of bravery. Hint. True bravery never feels brave. In addition to all of that, Emily founded the School of Bravery, a community and learning lab for supporting creative visionaries and entrepreneurs in growing through their challenges and discovering opportunities. All of these accomplishments and progress were made possible by Emily Ann's rebellious, adventurous spirit, curiosity, bravery, and through a tailored and disciplined approach to performing and teaching, a gift from her classical training. Emily Ann writes for people who struggle to remember what hope feels like and sings to those who yearn for something secret. She speaks to those who are done being bored and crave all things beautiful, strong, sacred, and sensual. Her goal is to inspire a global resonance and magnanimous community through the marriage of art and whole person development. We're excited to discover more today in this conversation with Emily Ann Peterson. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you guys for having me. It's fun to be here.
Great.
Awesome. So let's start at the beginning. How did you get into music?
Oh, well, my mom is a piano teacher. So I grew up taking naps underneath the piano while she's having vocal rehearsals and things like that. So.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So it's in your blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. I picked the cello because she didn't know how to play it, actually. Because I needed something that was mine.
Yeah. I guess that's where the rebellious spirit kicks in. So
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So you were doing that for 20 years. So like from about when to when? Age what to what were you?
So I started playing cello when I was in grade school, so 5th, 6th-ish grade in the US. And then all the way up until now. But I was diagnosed with my hand tremor in 2013, late 2013, 14. So.
Okay, so we didn't mention that up front. So a hand tremor. So you started, as you were playing or whatever, you started noticing that you were having challenges with your
right.
So
5 years ago, I was diagnosed with this this tremor in my right hand, and it was a career halter for sure. It was in my right hand, so it's the hand that you hold the cello bow in, and it's the hand that you need the most stability and when it's relaxed. And it just so happens that my tremor shows up when my hand is relaxed and extended. So that's exactly when I need to have the most stability in my hand, and I didn't have it. So it was awful. It, threw me through a really massive grief roller coaster, because I had spent the majority of my life and up until that point expressing myself creatively through this one creative medium. And at that point I was making my full-time living, and a good one at that. I was making my full-time living off of this one piece of wood And it wasn't just my living, it was also like my friends I knew because I was in a band, because I was a cellist, or I lived in the exact apartment that I lived in at the time because it was next to the band mate that was, so everything in my life was, had something to do with this instrument. And so when my neurologist said, hey, you've got this tremor, it really threw things for a huge loop. And that's what actually, triggered this like research project to discover what is actually bravery. Because I kept reading all these, first of all, I kept hearing all of these stories or hearing other people say, oh my gosh, Emily, you're so brave. You're just so great. You're so courageous. Keep going. You're just so great. And it was infuriating because I didn't know, because it didn't feel very brave. And that was really curious to me.
What didn't feel brave? The fact that you weren't able, like, what were they saying was brave of you, and what part of you was resisting hearing that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, they were basically saying, now that you've had this diagnosis, the way that you're handling the diagnosis, you're being so brave.
Oh, nice.
And I wanted to give them my middle finger.
Yeah. So in a way, you were doing it to basically for survival, to emotional stability and survival, I would guess. It's like, I've got to do something, right? With this, I've got to do something to...
Yeah, I have to pay the rent or I will get evicted.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, or I will live on the streets. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very real, very, very, very real. So, and there was a lot of pressure and financial pressure. There was a lot of emotional pressure as well, because I didn't know it, but I had placed so much value onto this piece of wood that I expressed myself through. When people said, oh, you're being so brave, and I didn't know, didn't have a great response to that. I did a lot of research. I started reading a lot of books about bravery and fear and these kinds of stuff. And every book that I read just felt really vapid and vacant. And even like, although Brene Brown, like the queen herself, is amazing.
Yes.
She's great. She's fantastic. And I can't wait for her Netflix special. But I would finish her books and still feel like I didn't have what I needed. Like I would finish and go like, well, great. Okay, cool. Now I know that I need to be wholehearted, or now I know I need to be vulnerable or courageous, but like, really, like, tell me what I need to do here, because I am like really floundering, and I think, and that's why I wrote the book, and that's why I continued doing all the research that I did, because I realized this answer is not out there yet, and I was determined to find it. So, yeah.
Okay. So about how long was that process for you, from when you were diagnosed to, when you began to discover the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, the road of opportunity into these new areas of creativity?
Yeah. So I, right around the time so 6 months after my diagnosis, I was awarded an artist residency to go live in the mountains of Leavenworth, Washington for 6 weeks at an artist community out there. Beautiful place, beautiful place. And so I had this luxurious, it wasn't like a luxury resort necessarily, but it was a luxurious amount of time that a lot of people in my situation don't get. Like, you don't often, like, when you're going through these brave moments, like, let's say you have to go through a divorce, or you just got a cancer diagnosis or whatever, you don't often get like, okay, cool, here, take 6 weeks off from your life. Like, so I recognized that and was really grateful for it. And when I got out there, because I had originally applied for the residency as a cellist to write and record new music for the cello. And when I got out there, I explained my situation to them, and they were very gracious and said, well, we don't really care what you do, you know, in your studio space, as long as you're doing something creative and have something to show for it at the end of the 6 weeks, you know, like, we're cool with that. You know, like if you need to take that 6 weeks to go do, you know, whatever you need to do, go do it, you know, which is so great. And most artist residencies aren't cool with that. So I spent the 6 weeks that I was out there just writing other music and doing other songwriting. So I had done co-songwriting with other bands that I had been in and other, you know, groups that I had been part of. But it was the first time since really high school that I had really done solo songwriting. So when I finished that time, I was like, I came out of the mountains with this like handful of like pretty okay songs. And I realized, oh, okay, these aren't like the greatest things in the world, but they're worth continuing. Like, it's worth keeping going. So
yeah, absolutely. You line up, which of course we'll link here, emilyannpeterson.com. And so seeing you singing and playing guitar, seeing you at the piano, singing original compositions that you've, you know, well, obviously redundantly, but composed, right? Original songs that you've composed. When I just loved the Tides Turning song, the chorus in that was just amazing, very haunting, and just such a poignant message. So was that real? Was that really something from your mom to you? Is that a story of you? Or
that's a story about, I love that you love that story. That means a lot. That is a story about my aunt's relationship with my grandmother. So they were very, very close. And in the past, 2 years, I've lost all 4 grandparents. Well, 3, but the 4th one, we are still, she's got dementia. So, it's a version of losing her.
Right.
And so, yeah, that when we lost that grandmother, I was, trying to figure out ways to honor her. And I realized that one of the most powerful pieces of her story was her relationship with her daughter, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, very cool. Now,
beautiful. We've
got the words here as I wrote down the lyrics, but it seems like it would be more appropriate for you to say them or even sing them.
Oh my gosh.
If you would like to, if not, I'll just read that.
You say them.
Okay. So it's from Emily Ann Peterson's song, Tides Turning. And the chorus is, "Tides turning, darling. I'm here to stay. Hold my hand and you can breathe that fear away." Just so along those lines, I mean, was that really your grandma's legacy to her daughter, your aunt? Or was that, is that your aunt? I mean, her daughter?
Yeah, my aunt is her daughter, yeah. Okay. Whether she said this is the beautiful part about being a songwriter, whether she said those words outright or not is not part of, I don't know that. That's an intimate thing between them that I don't have the access to. But I do have access to some of these stories that they were a pair. They, in the I believe it was the 50s, my grandmother got a divorce, which was pretty unheard of at the time, and a really scary thing to do. And then she got remarried, which is also really kind of scary thing to do especially for a daughter who had experienced a previous father that was not exactly, super
Right.
sweet.
Right.
Now, obviously, this is like family stories, so I don't.
Right. No details.
This is like, these are details that may or may not be true. So, family lore. But I do know that my grandfather came back from the war. And
1 second. You're breaking up.
Just
and not sure. Getting any bandwidth notifications?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so let's see how it goes. You were saying your grandfather, I think,
came back from the war.
Yeah, he came back from World War II, and that just started this new family that just happened to come with a daughter already, and yeah, it's the rest of the story is just the moments that you encounter as a mother and as a daughter. There are those moments where you want to hold each other's hand and go like, the only thing we can do right now is just breathe, because this is really scary.
And I mean, so, and I don't know if you've like done this intentionally, but it seems to me like through songwriting and through such, a message like that, it's an invocation through the chorus that you do, though, sort of teach the concept of what kind of legacy we have the opportunity to leave our children through such simple, affirmations.
Absolutely.
Okay, you broke up again, but you're still with us? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Sorry, she was.
Sorry, go
ahead.
Oh, no, there's a plot twist at the end. So if you haven't listened to the song yet, go ahead and go do that. And then the recording, I believe that you guys posted that this morning on your Facebook page. The recording with Ben Soley playing cello meant a lot to me because he is from Kentucky. So he's cellist. I'm a cellist. I love that. That's great. But he's also from Kentucky, and my grandmother's from Kentucky. Oh. So there was that like melodic connection that meant a lot to me. So
yeah, definitely wonderful. We'll definitely put that in the show notes as well. Sorry, do you remember what you were saying?
Well, I was just going to say, it's so beautiful through art, music, songwriting, your story, that you can memorialize that emotion and that connection. And so that music becomes sort of like a immortal legacy that they had together. I just think that's beautiful.
Yeah. I think as artists, we get a really unique opportunity to be historians. I think sometimes the art gets kind of glorified for like the emotional aspects of things, but there is a really cool piece that after you die, that piece of art will live on in some form or fashion, and which kind of, makes it either adds more pressure or takes the pressure off, depending on who you are, or where you are.
Right. And what the is and what you put out there. But I love that. We'll definitely put that as a shareable quote. I think as artists, we have the opportunity to be a little bit like historians. That's great. That's a really poignant point. And you certainly do that. And you're, so when you were a cellist, active practicing cellist, were you singing also?
I was trying to sing more. But here's the thing, like anytime I walk up to somebody and say, oh, I'm a songwriter, they go, cool, that's really great. This is Nashville to Seattle to whatever. They get the cool thing. I say they get really excited. I'm sorry, Milan, you broke up again just a little bit. You said when you say I'm a cellist, they get excited? Yeah, when I say I'm a cellist, then that's when they go, oh, cool, I love the cello. It's so great. It's this wonderful thing, which actually made part of the diagnosis really hard because it felt like I had lost the only thing that made me special.
Yeah.
The
only thing that you thought that made you special.
Right, of course.
Especially in areas where so many people have, quote, so much talent. Like you're in areas that are already saturated with singers, songwriters, musicians. So it's sort of like almost feeling like you get lost in the sea of everybody else who's special. And then the doctor says, by the way, you can't do this one thing now.
You're not who you are. You're not who you thought you were.
Yeah. It's like an identity crisis.
It absolutely was. Yeah. But even today, when I say I'm a songwriter and then I find out that I also play the cello, it gets really difficult. It can get difficult to, or I have had, let's just say I have had experience with people then only wanting me for my cello experience and not wanting me for the art that I'm currently producing. So I have to be careful how I introduce myself to people. And especially right around the diagnosis, I was not saying, hi, my name's Emily Ann Peterson. I'm a cellist.
Right.
So
that makes a lot of sense. And and all the re-identification, the re-identity process that you went through, like moms do that when they go from being like, I was a nurse, who are you? I'm Sophia nurse, to I'm somebody's mom. I'm a mom now. I'm a housewife, or I'm a whatever. And they're really, because we forget that we do tend to associate who we are with what we do. And of course for creatives, it's like Mackenzie said the other day, what's his last name? Clinch, thank you. He's one of the writers in the I Create Daily for Creators Facebook group and community. And he said, when we asked people about why do you write, and sort of his response was, because that's who I am, and so certainly as a writer, I mean, that makes sense. You're producing words. And so for you though, you aren't a cellist, you're a musician, you're a creative and creator. So that was like the bridge that you had to walk across.
Well, one of the biggest pieces that I got from that residency in the mountains was that I'm not just a cellist, I'm a musician. I'm not just a musician, I'm a songwriter. I'm not just a songwriter, I'm an artist, and I have something to say. And so when you get to that point of I'm an artist, it frees you up to make art in any way you need to. So let's say, for instance, what was his name? You said his
Mackenzie.
Yeah, if Mackenzie said someday woke up and lost the ability to write with his hands, he could still make art and still be an artist, and still express himself. And I think that is a really important piece to keep in mind, because, and even as a business owner, this is really important as well. Like you can, it's funny. I now have like eggs in basket PTSD, because all of my eggs were in this one basket of the cello. And so as for business model reasons, I now have like dispersed all of my income streams to many different income streams. So it feels a lot better when, like, let's say a client decides to move on and go a different direction, or their time with me ends, or a big project ends or something like that. I don't lose my identity when my client walks away,
Yeah.
or when the project ends. And I have a lot of friends who, like even songwriter friends, who encounter what I call, and actually book like authors will encounter this too, is what I call post-publishing pardom.
Yeah.
Because you've been putting all of your effort onto this one project, and then after it's out and the launch is over and the marketing is done, then what?
Right.
Who are you then? Like,
that's such a good point.
Especially if the launch goes soft.
Right.
Especially if it doesn't take off, then even all the more, which is often the case with new composers and musicians and writers and such, creatives.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's the more frequently you release things, the more you're dispersing out all of that effort and energy basically into this your eggs are in different baskets basically.
What since we're talking about it now, what are the different things that you're doing? What are the different business baskets and art baskets that
Sure.
you're juggling right now?
So my friend Eric Branner, he's great. He's the founder of this app called fawns.com, which is pretty cool. And he calls it an income quilt.
Oh, cool.
And every month your income quilt has squares that are shaped different sizes and different things, you know, that kind of thing. So I love that metaphor. It's a great metaphor. Right now I have albums. So I have Cello Yoga is actually a project that is online. I don't talk about it a lot, but it's there and it's a passive income.
Cello yoga?
It's just instrumental cello music, and it's just there for SEO reasons. So when somebody searches cello and yoga on Spotify, there it is.
Nice. It's so happy. Like, we're both really happy that you mentioned it's there for SEO and passive income reasons, because we talk to so many artists who resist the business side. So it's great when you have the savvy business artist too.
Yeah, and the concept of putting things out there for the sake of exposure without any expectation of that in and of itself is going to produce a return.
Yeah. I don't put any marketing effort behind that music at all. And it's sometimes, what's so funny is I have no ego attached to it. So much so that at the end of the year, when I look at my numbers and I realize that, like, wow, it did so well, but this other stuff that I put so much effort into didn't do so well, that's when my ego gets bruised. But it is, I highly recommend like unattach your ego from some of your projects. It can be really powerful. So I have that. I also have my own compositions, which we've talked about. I do speaking and performing. So I do corporate events and gigs for like Fortune 500 companies who want to do like kind of a musical TED Talk experience for their employees. Those are really fun. I really love doing them. It's essentially a house concert, which is that's another square on my income quilt. And I have a book. I write. I do copywriting for people who need some help with their copywriting juju. And that's usually just by word of mouth basis. And then I also have started this thing called the School of Bravery, which is for creative visionaries to learn how to get their brave stuff out there. So I work a lot with, it's a monthly membership, and I work a lot with people who have like really big ideas, but don't necessarily know how to get from A to B. So we talk about the unsexy versions of things. So we'll talk a lot about like time blocking and time management and which app should I use for this thing? And how do you release a podcast? And how do you do this? And should I hire this person or should I outsource, or like all that kind of stuff? So
yeah, that's so needed. And it's fun to do that within a supportive community of entrepreneur artists. Because then you kind of understand each other, you speak some of the same language, and you know, you're not in competition, you're just rooting for each other. That's a lot of what the I Create Daily audience is about. That was a great summary of those things.
I'm sure there's some things that I'm missing. I also have a couple passive income things, like I have a research assistant who sometimes I'll just have her go and update the spreadsheet called the Savvy Songwriter spreadsheet. The Savvy Songwriting Competition spreadsheet or something like that. And it's basically every couple times a year, I will have my research assistant go in and update this spreadsheet. And then everyone who's subscribed to the updates gets updated on all of all of these songwriting competitions and all their deadlines and all the changes to the rules and everything. So yeah.
That's a great idea. And
I just love how much I love how much you you've expanded your creativity in a way that really serves like both your own enriched creative life and purpose and what you want to do. So it comes from a place like, I want to do this, but then also here are all these other resources for other creators because I know you want this stuff too. And
yeah, absolutely. And that's a perfect example of that. That like there was one year, this year my strategy is not leaning into the song competition. There was a year where I was, I'm going to just apply to all, see what happens. And the application process takes forever. You have to figure out like, 1, do you qualify? 2, is it worth it? 3, like, what kind of music are they looking for, and who are the past winners, and like when is the deadline, and how much is it's expensive. If you apply to all of them, it's expensive. So you have to kind of budget things out to kind of go, if I'm going to actually do this, I need to. So all of that research just took forever. And I was like, surely I'm not the only person trying to do this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that's a lot of things that many artists don't necessarily think about, that type of strategy and putting that type of content out there not only helps them, but enriches their brand, because now they're not just an artist, they're an expert on whatever they're out doing, whether it's music or painting or writing, whatever that is. There are different lateral or verticals that you can put out that help other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. And that to me just indicates that something you may not have realized when you were, are you with us still? Yeah, you froze up for a second. Something you may not have realized when you were younger, and it seems like you've discovered it, is that I see laced throughout your journey, the entrepreneurial spirit.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Oh yeah. Lemonade stand as a kid. Totally.
Yeah, okay. So
that's not a surprise.
So it was obvious. It was more than, because the other signs, like we're choosing the cello and researching bravery, when it is that you have this. So it's like always looking, well, that's not working. And curiosity, that's not working, and I can do better. I can make a better solution, and certainly create a better solution for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And even just all these different monetary streams. I mean, that's so unusual and so fantastic and so essential for the success of creators, not just creators, but entrepreneurs and many people in general, freelancers, especially these days, to have multiple income streams. So a couple questions about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. And I will say, before you ask the questions, I will say that the change from, because I was in a service-based only business model. So I was in here, let me teach you cello lessons hour by hour business model.
Right.
Let me perform at your function or your concert.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that last, sorry, Emily Ann, can you repeat that last sentence?
Yeah. So I was in a business model that was just an hourly based business model when I was diagnosed. And then, so that was 5 years ago. And it's taken 5 years to get to where I'm at right now. And I'm still not where, like, financially where I would want to be, where I feel like really comfortable. And I'm sure I'll probably say that in 3 years, because everybody does lifestyle creep, but I will say, like, I think a lot of times the online business world especially tends to, pitch this, like, you can do it overnight or in 90 days. And it doesn't, it's a 5-year process. Like, it takes 5 years to build any business. Like, I don't care what business it is, it takes 5 years to do it. So, and really feel like you've been to that of real, like, you've gotten into a groove of things,
Before you set into a rhythm. Yeah, absolutely. And then I think for us, one of the questions that we would recommend folks ask is like, okay, so, I mean, we're all impatient and we all want it here and now. And especially because our dreams are so pressing and compelling, our desire to do more, to be more, to make a difference, and all that, to create all the many things that we want to create. But then the question is, if at the end of the 5 years, if I don't pursue this journey, where will I be and how will I feel about it? So I get to the end of the 5 years. So it's going to take 5 years. Okay. But if I'm going to get to the 5 years mark anyway, So do I want to have those 5 years filled with every effort to achieve my dreams? Or do I want to just not pursue it because it seems too hard, and then where will I be?
I love the meme. I see it every couple months. Almost any time that I need to see it, it pops up, which is great. Awesome. But it's the would you rather it be a I tried instead of a what if.
Yeah.
And so you reach the end of the 5-year period, the 7-year period, however long it is for you. And it's like, wouldn't you be glad that you tried? And now you know. Now you know. There's no like, well, what if it did work? Or what if it didn't? You know. You have an answer.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Yeah. Yeah.
So on those income streams, you said compositions. And so what is the question I have on that is like, how are you monetizing for the compositions? And also how are you getting the corporate gigs?
So the corporate gigs are like the frontier for me right now. The ones that I have gotten have been like word of mouth, which, from what I'm gathering, the public speaking circuit is very similar to the music getting gigs circuit, in that like you have to know people, you have to have your ducks in a row, you have to not look like a fool, and have an actual message to sell. And you know, and the music equivalent of that would be like, does your website suck? Do you have fans? Do you have a local draw? And does your music not, you know, make me want to cover my ears? And if those things apply, then sure, we'll give you a shot, right? Yeah. But you're not going to get paid the full amount. You're not going to get paid like Lady Gaga does.
Right.
You're probably going to have to do the gig for free. So there's a lot of, in the public speaking realm, there's a lot of similar kinds of, you know, ladders to climb, you know. Right. So if you're not a ladder climber and that turns you off, then you might want to approach public speaking from a different angle, from a non-traditional angle. So.
Well, that's a good point too, because you're being a creative, but then you're also sort of inserting yourself in somebody else's ecosystem. When you go to do an event or music for a corporation, you're going into their arena, and their arena is the prove yourself through the ladder system. So
totally,
it seems like it's a good avenue for any artist who still wants exposure to their work.
I have often said, so I'm going to get on a soapbox here, so pardon me. It kills me when I see artists who are marketing themselves, who are underselling themselves and marketing themselves to people in a way that makes them not want to say yes. So part of this is, if you're an artist, and you could market yourself to a business or a Fortune 500 company in many different ways. You could walk in and say, hi, I'm an artist. Would you like me to put some of my art on your walls? Or you could say, hi, I'm an artist. Would you like me to teach your CEOs about sexual harassment? You know, or hi, I'm an artist, and would you like me to help, you know, let's do a team building exercise. Right. So then you're not just the artist itself. They're looking at you as like, oh, you're going to help us avoid lawsuits. You're going to help us, you know, with our bottom line. You're going to help us with. So those are the things that you can walk into a Fortune 500 company and say like, hey, yeah, no, here's my price tag. I deserve it. Because you've labeled yourself in a way that matches that value.
Yeah.
On their terms.
Yes.
Right. And that's not to say that your art by itself is not valuable, because it is valuable, but they may not agree in their ecosystem. They may not agree that that's where they want to spend their money, but they do have gobs of money to spend. And they do think you're cool because you have funky glasses and, you know, like wear awesome turquoise jewelry, you know, but, you know, or in my case, like I wore a jean jacket and had tattoos, and I walked into this like Fortune 500 company, this bank in Atlanta. And I'm like, I'm wearing tattoos in a bank. This is so weird. But they loved it. Like, the fact that you're different is the reason why they want to hire you.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to present yourself in a way that makes them want to hire you for that function.
So again, it's like going back to doing the research of like, okay, what is this company that I'm pitching myself? Like, what are their values? What is important to them? And how can I offer that in my style?
And what do they need? Yeah, because they're being hired. Mm-hmm. They have to hire within the context of what's on their development roster, what they need to offer their people for development. Yeah. And then back to your, jeans and tattoos in the corporate climate, there are also companies these days are challenged, especially stuffy corporations, longstanding, are challenged to indicate that they know how to be different and innovative. Yeah. So certainly that would do. But I want to go back for a minute to you're talking about doing the speaking gigs for free and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because that ties in with 5-year plan that we were talking
mm-hmm.
about. And, just one of those, often leads to many more and oftentimes paid, because in that audience, of 100 or 50 or 25 or 500, whatever it is, people, there's going to be at least one, and usually more, who will come up and say, can you speak at my church? Can you speak at my school? Can you, speak at the college? And by the way, a lot of colleges have budgets to hire people and hire programs, especially for development and inspiration for freshmen coming in, incoming orientations and that sort of thing. So that's a market, to look into and to pursue. So that would definitely...
That's actually really a little bit difficult, just because a lot of times the bookers, the people who are booking talent for those college organizations, they switch over every year. So you have a new person who you have to hunt down every year at XYZ University, because, that student decided to go on to a different role or is at study abroad or whatever, So that's there, as you are researching, like, is this idea feasible? There are those pieces, those like little roadblocks that will come up. That's like, oh, yikes, That's not something that's it is unavoidable, because that's a factor, but it is it's something that I'm going to have to involve into my risk assessment of, like, is this worth it for me? And it's easily hireable. Like, get a research assistant to just stay on top of who is in charge of all these universities.
That's true. It could be something like a one-time a year mail out, but and so I just made a note, so we'll see if we can find a college talent recruiter and programs director, whatever, to interview, so they can give us some tips from the inside. So I'm glad you mentioned that, but it's all a part of it, the journey of exploration and discovery. And it's like, okay, so that person changes, then ask that department, so who should I, what's the best way? Those are
right.
Simple questions. And the thing is, it's sort of like for the creatives that balk at putting things out on the internet for free as well. It's sort of like, where you're going to be creating anyway. You're going to be doing something anyway. And if you do put it out there,
and you're going to be not paid for a long time anyway.
In some cases, for some things,
Yeah.
It's sort of like realtors, they know that they might have to work for weeks before they actually get a sale.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it doesn't even come from the same people that they spent so much time with. A
Right.
lot of times come from the referrals that are easy and quick jobs. So in the end, that gets quicker and easier, as the exposure gets out there.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And like, exposure bucks aren't the greatest thing in the world, like, oh, but you get paid in exposure. That's not always.
Emily Ann, did you say exposure by books?
No, exposure bucks.
Oh, exposure bucks. Okay.
Yeah. Like dollars. That's not always how you want to get paid. But there are some situations where it is worth it, especially when you're starting out, which is why it's really great to have a bridge job, or to have income quilt squares that are bigger, that can help you, like, say, for instance, like, I've got these other income squares that I've built already that are cool. They're cooking, they're doing their thing, but that's allowing me to focus on building these next things that I'm creating for free.
Yeah. And it's so important too, because the fear and anxiety that you went through during that period of time, and even thank goodness for your entrepreneurial spirit that helped pull you through that, because that can be stifling to creativity. So it can really be a double whammy as far as improving, progressing, or whatever that you need to do in that time. So we always recommend people not to leave their day jobs if they're in that place of seeking to do their creative endeavor for a living. So
I'm like the biggest fan of bridge jobs, by the way. There's no shame in that whatsoever.
Absolutely. Because like you said, the what did you say? What do you call it? Bucks, the freebie bucks or whatever.
The exposure bucks.
Exposure bucks.
Like
do not put food on the table or pay the rent. So, but they are important and they have their place. But absolutely, you need to keep that bridge. Yeah. But back to your, so how is it you're earning through your compositions, and is part of that Patreon, and also where does Patreon fit in for you?
Yeah, so I have a presence on Patreon, but I don't actually, if somebody follows me on Patreon, I actually will like usher them into my little universe, away from Patreon, because I have my own membership site and everything that has like lower processing payment fees and all that other kind of stuff. As a musician, it's good to have a presence on Patreon, just because a lot of other musicians have the same thing, or are there. There's like a social media element to that. As far as compositions go, so I do have patronage. So I have, there are people who are, funding me every month. Every time I write a song, I put it in a membership portal basically, and they have access to a video of me playing that new song. And then if I do a rewrite or an edit to the song, then they get to see kind of each iteration of like, oh wow, cool, she totally took out the bridge, or that kind of thing. So they get to kind of see how every song morphs. So that's really great and fun and cheap too. It's like $2 a month. It's really doable. And then the other part of the compositions is just, you're just traditional publishing rights organizations and, Spotify and streaming plays and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Right. So I saw one of your...
It's like a Tic Tac sized square on my income.
Got it. Yeah. But, absolutely. It might buy the coffee for the day kind of thing. Yeah.
It's sort of like Kindle, like putting your book on the Kindle platform or the Kindle Unlimited platform, where it's almost free. Basically, once you've taken out all your expenses, marketing costs, Amazon platform, basically you didn't make that much, but it's there and you grow your audience with it.
You might be doing it wrong.
Yeah. What?
I said you might be doing it wrong. If that's doing the Kindle ebooks, if that's the case, because you can make a profit off of your Kindle ebooks.
Yeah, I wasn't saying you couldn't make a profit, but there are also a lot of authors who you'll see their Kindle book marketed at like 99 cents. So they're not making a whole lot off of that particular income stream. I wasn't implying that you can't.
Oh, okay. So yeah, no, but that would just mean that product itself is more of an opt-in, or is like a breadcrumb to other pieces of the product. So yeah,
definitely
it's part of the customer experience.
Yeah, definitely.
But you clearly know a lot about selling books as well. So if you have tips on how people can do ebooks, because we have a lot of authors in our tribe that publishing an actual book or self-publishing is a more expensive route for the physical, but if they can get ebooks out there, that would be a good strategy.
What tips do you have that you'd like to share in that?
Yeah, I mean, I do my own graphic design, so that saves a lot of money in terms of that kind of stuff. And do you have something specific?
Yeah, just you said that you can make money with Kindle ebooks. So did you have any specific tips on that?
Yeah. I would recommend setting your AMS ads at 40% or lower. and your average cost of sale at 40% or lower, depending on the price of your book, and depending on, you'd have to do the math out correctly, but depending on like the percentage of royalties that you get for each of your books. So because in that way, basically your AMS ads are always making a profit, rather than just like, I think I'm going to spend $50 on like playing the Amazon lottery this month, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And then I also recommend there's a lot of stuff out there on researching keywords and categories for your book, and cycling through your keywords and your categories and changing the description of your book every 90 days.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's great to know. That's really amazing. A big help for some of the authors that we have. And when you say AMS, you're meaning Amazon Marketing Services, which is their ad program, which authors can use to promote their books. Yeah. So,
and that's just like 2 ideas, right? Like, there are many, 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 many other ideas as well.
That you've learned over time just by working through it, you know, one day at a time.
You're a wealth of information.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's super helpful. On the, you mentioned your earlier, and we also mentioned your disciplined creative habits based on, you know, your that probably undoubtedly came from your classical training, as well as all the time spent with your mom as a piano teacher. So what are your current creative habits that serve you most?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. You're catching me in like I'm in a flow state right now, and I'm in like flowing with business stuff right now. So I'm creating business right now is really what's happening, which I think is equally creative as anything else.
We agree.
But I do have one of the regular things that I am a part of right now is I'm in an online songwriting group that's like invite only. And there's only 12 people in the group, and it's a bunch of other songwriter friends of mine all around the country. And every month we have to write a song featuring the word prompt of the month. And if we don't write that song, we get kicked out of the group.
Oh, wow.
There's some accountability.
Oh, it's great. And then, and you know, ask what today's the 27th at the time of recording. So like, you'll have to ask me in 3 days if I finished my song.
What's this month's? Yeah.
What's the word?
The word is string.
String?
Yeah, a string, like string.
Write your song.
Exactly. But that's been really helpful to have that accountability to just write something every month, write a song every month. But I often will write a lot more than that every month. But it's nice having that accountability of like, no, you want to stay in that group because you want to hear everyone else's new songs before anybody else does. So it's great.
Yeah. And just being immersed in people who have similar aspirations, you know, to not let too much time go by before they've done what they say they want to do, what's important to them, because it's very easy to let busyness get in the way of, you know, passions really, of the things that are more important. You know, what do they say? Let urgent get in the way of important kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what, on your, basically, so we've covered your, okay, here we go. The top of all the many things that you're doing, of all the patches on your quilt, can you identify the top 1 to 3 things that are the most productive, that if you only, you know, could focus on 1 to 3 of those, what that would be, that's the most financially productive for you and your business?
Bravery coaching, and I'm going to say songwriting, but only because I see that the more that I do that, the more other things grow. Interesting. Kind of like an indirect water this plant and the runoff waters all the other plants kind of thing.
That's a good metaphor. Sorry, were you going to say something else?
And then the third one would be my book, or books in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? You said earlier.
Songwriting.
Yeah, no, I forgot my thought from before. Well, it'll probably come back. Let's see.
Yeah.
songwriting. Okay. Well, if it doesn't, so what, do you have any aspirations that you would like to share? Like where your vision of where you would like to go with your creative endeavors?
Releasing an album at the end of May to my email list. And then 3 months later, I'll do it to the public.
Awesome.
So my email list will get access to it before everybody else does. And that's kind of very exciting. And they just get it. I'm just going to send it to them. Just because. Yeah. And so I'm doing that right now. That's like right on my, like right here, right on my face.
Now, wouldn't it be great if that song could be the one that has string in it?
I know, but no. That's too far gone. That'll be like next recording project. The album that's releasing right now has songs that I've been working on 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
So it's taken a long time to get this album out. And albums are big, huge projects. So, yeah. If any of your friends are doing Kickstarters for their albums, like go fund them because it's like a really big ordeal.
Are you doing a Kickstarter with yours or?
No, because my career is not like everybody else's career, so I'm doing it a little different.
Well, like you said, you already have your own platform, your own email list, your own membership, etc. So you've already got the infrastructure, which we've also learned that really the best, most successful Kickstarter campaigns are those that already have that. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it may not be because the other part of that is you have to then take all the time that you're spending in developing your own business platforms and put that onto the Kickstarter, enterprise. So it becomes an enterprise in and of itself. So that's for that reason we haven't gone that route yet either. And I did remember the question I was going to ask earlier. Oh, I saw one of the songs I saw online from you was a commissioned song. From a man to, I think, his wife. And so you do commissioned songs as well still? Yeah, I do. I love commissioned songs. That couple actually found me, the wife found me for her husband's Christmas present. And he had built her their house. Oh. And she was like, I have no idea what to get him for Christmas because he just built me a house. Like, so that's the song that came out of it. So it was a sweet story. And I love doing commissions. It's an honor. It's like part of the historian piece, it's an honor to me to have like that story of their relationship, like solidified into history somehow, well, and that's definitely a theme for you because that's what you did with the tide is turning. Mm-hmm. Yes, tide's turning. So there's something there, and it was so clear in your portrayal of the song how much you were also really enjoying it and like the meaning and emotion that you put behind it was just so present.
It's such an honor. Like it really is.
Wonderful. So people, if they want to commission you to do a song, they can find that on your website, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Please hit me up. I'm happy to we can talk. It's really easy. The whole process is super easy. Like it's, you just say, hey, I'm curious. I'm interested in this. And then we have a conversation about it. And then I take a lot of notes. Usually we do like a video conversation like this so that I can record it. Mm-hmm. If I need to go back and reference it later to when I'm writing the song. But yeah, like I wrote that song for them out of a 45-minute conversation with her about her and her husband.
Okay.
So, awesome. And how cool. And you get to hear like little snippets of people's lives, which is always fun as an artist. And you're like, wow, I'm going to make you a piece of art that's part of your life. And that's just so cool.
Oh yeah. It's so great. I love it. It's so fun.
Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share before we say goodbye?
No, just if you guys have any questions, if anybody's watching or listening has any questions, please hit me up. It's just me over here.
Okay. All right. Connected to the World Wide Web, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, thanks so much for spending this time. We really enjoyed getting to know you more.
Thank you guys. It's so great. I'll see you later.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for joining us for the I Create Daily podcast. Please let us know what creatives you would like us to interview and what topics you would be interested in hearing more about.
And if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review on iTunes. We value your feedback. We read all the reviews, and it just helps us get the word out on the I Create Daily podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.